My name's Ollie, and I happen to be Charlotte's future son-in-law, being engaged to her oldest son, Josh, and we are due to marry in July 2027. So I live in London, like Josh. We've lived in London for coming up to 5 years now. I've previously worked in the trans healthcare space. I've also done a little bit in HR. Right now I'm in a customer service role while I, to be honest, figure out what I want to do with my life because I don't know. Yeah, in terms of personality, I guess, gosh, what can I say here? We have a cat. We have a beautiful cat called Oreo. He's our pride and joy. Yes, and I'm quite, I would say, an active person outside of kind of just sort of day to day life. I really love climbing. I can very often be found falling off walls and trying not to injure myself, although that doesn't always succeed. That doesn't always work. Yeah, I'm also learning British Sign Language at level one at the moment, having passed a couple of exams and hoping not to fail the others. And I like reading, I like writing. I'm on social media a little bit too much, but aren't we all?
Please, if you can reflect a little bit about your style journey, as it were, and how that's kind of changed over time. But how about you? If we start with your current style?
So I guess my current style, I think, is quite heavily influenced by East London as an area. I guess that historically East London has kind of been like quite a sort of an
Yeah.
underdeveloped place, and
Yes.
over recent years, it has undergone quite a lot of gentrification, particularly Hackney,
Mm.
which is obviously where we're based. And I think a lot of the kind of fashion or men's fashion around here surrounds kind of like almost arty, for lack
Mhm.
of a better word. And I'm going to explain that
Mm.
further. A style of kind of like baggy jeans with like a baggy top and like workwear jeans. And I kind of take that as kind of inspiration. But I kind of change it up a little bit to make it a little bit more me. So baggy trousers, for example. I'm tiny. I'm 5'5". So every single pair of trousers that I own has to be turned up. But I like the kind of baggy style because I like the shape of like a larger trouser, things like that. Matched with some kind of like graphic print top or something like a little vest, like what I'm wearing right
Very
now, that's
nice.
got a
Yeah. Yeah.
pattern
I'm
on
admiring what you're wearing.
it. Yeah. Yeah, I think, like, I'm influenced by that kind of, like, almost arty East London
Mhm.
style, but I think with kind of my own little bit of nuance on it, which I think is quite hard to describe the nuance other than, like, kind of pops of color. I like if I'm wearing a pattern, then I like the pattern to kind of be the statement, and everything else just kind of looks a bit more plain. So, like, with this, for example, like, this has got kind of a I don't know, how would you describe that? Like an argyle
Oh,
pattern? And then, like, just a plain T-shirt and kind of, like, plain blue jeans. If I'm wearing a pattern, I want that to be the statement.
mhm.
And I'm quite heavily influenced by Vinted and, like, kind of secondhand shopping as well. It's much more sustainable for the environment, and the way that I justify it as well when I buy things is that it's more sustainable for my bank account because it's
Mhm.
mostly cheaper. Um,
Yeah.
that's those are my justifications for spending so much money on Vinted, and a lot of the things that are on there tend to be, yeah, also kind of like with that almost arty, like creative, kind of casual, but still looks like you could be in a corporate creative job.
Mhm. Mhm.
What I would it's what I would say my style is. The other day, I met a friend for lunch, and the outfit I was wearing, she was like, "You look like you work in Shoreditch. Like, you look like you work in a creative role in Shoreditch." And
You took that as a compliment?
I take that as a
Yeah,
compliment.
I
She
would.
said it was a nice
Yeah.
outfit, so I'm
Yeah.
gonna take that as a compliment. But I think that's pretty accurate to describe, my my personal style.
Do you feel that your style then has developed since you've been in London then?
Um But I think when I first came out of as trans, I tried to wear what I thought would look masculine, and I definitely
Mm.
copied the men around me, which was men that were in the small town of Kettering in
Mm.
Northamptonshire. Well, I say majority. All of these men were straight men,
Mm.
and so all of the men that I would see were wearing kind of like almost kind of like, and no shade to anyone if this is your personal style, but just kind of like tracksuits and like sporty clothing. And I wore that a lot to kind of just blend in, not stick out too much. Because the point was I didn't really want to stick out too much, right? Because
Mm. Yeah.
I didn't really want to like wear anything that could be considered out there because my main priority was passing as a man in
Mm.
those instances. is. And I think now, especially having been on testosterone for 8 years, and obviously, having more masculine features like facial hair, stuff like that, if I wear a more out there kind of clothes
Mhm.
piece, there's no kind of like misgendering issue. So I
Mm.
definitely think what I wore in the beginning was more like what the area of Kettering would have seen as like stereotypically
Mm.
masculine, just to kind of blend in. And I think, yeah, that definitely changed when I moved to London, and also my body started changing as well, because that, kind of like my increase in body hair, things like that really hit once we moved to London. So wearing sort of things that fitted my body a bit better, and were able to like actually, complement the shape of like body that I have, for
Mm.
example. So I think, yeah, yeah, it's definitely changed, and it's definitely got much bolder. Not like hugely bolder. Like, I mean, I see some people that walk down the streets that look absolutely incredible and are really bold with their fashion choices. And I'm still not quite that bold, but I'm definitely more bold than what I
Mm.
was
Mm.
in terms of fashion. Like
Mm.
if it's something that is maybe like what would be considered a little bit out there, then I would wear it if I
Mm.
wanted to and I
Mm.
felt comfortable to.
Lovely.
I think even if I was to wear this, what I'm wearing in Kettering, I'd probably get some looks. Obviously, I've got a coat on over this today, but if I kind of wear this in the summer, I wouldn't even really get a second look in London. Not that that's a bad thing, but I wouldn't get kind of any judgmental stares. Um, yeah, I definitely think the area that you live in for fashion, and I think this is true of anyone, not just queer people, but I think the area of that you live in does influence your style to some extent, at the very least. I guess in Hackney in London, there are a lot of charity shops, there are a lot
Mm.
of vintage shops, a lot of secondhand shops, and it's quite sort of like fashionable to wear vintage or secondhand things. So, like, kind of these baggy sportswear jumpers are kind of in right now. I think I really like them. And so you have that kind of easier access to those pieces
Mm.
as well. And a lot of like vintage things that you find in a charity shop are like random and kind of one of a kind, because they're so however many years old that
Mm.
like statistically it's just not likely that people are going to have those things. And so
Mm.
you can find yourself having really unique pieces that
Yeah.
just, yeah, that just feel, I don't know, like feel freeing. I don't know.
You
So
can create that kind of individual look, can't you?
percent you can use so many different things to create kind of an individual style. And I think that everyone's style is fluid. I think that my style is very fluid. I think while I've been quite sort of generalizing in a style and describing my style, I do think it's like fluid in terms of it's not just one thing, and I don't think I would categorize it as one
Yeah.
particular thing. It's whatever kind of takes my fancy
Mhm.
in the moment,
Mm.
and whatever I kind of want.
Is there anything that you would say that you're aware of in terms of how style, fashion, way people are dressing within the queer community more broadly has changed over the time, over the decades?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that queer fashion tends to be a lot more loud than straight fashion. And when I say loud, I mean more bright colors and more out there. There just seems to be, I mean, not everyone, it kind of dresses like this, but there's a lot more individuality within fashion, I think, within the queer community. And this is, I'm at risk of sounding judgmental here, but if I was to look at a group of like straight men and a group of gay men, I think it's more likely that the gay men are going to have that kind of individuality within fashion. And I think that's because we have had to, come to terms with ourselves and come to terms with our
Mm.
individuality. And once you're in a place where you can accept that and you have accepted that, I think you're much more likely to be a bit more kind of free with your
Mm.
style. I don't think queer fashion is as strict when it comes to typically items that would be masculine or
Mhm.
feminine. I think it's much more fluid in that. And I do think we are seeing a shift to that in straight fashion a little bit as well, but we don't sort of see that shift in everyday life. And we more kind of see that for like on stage performers, for example, like artists and music artists. So
Mm.
I think overall queer fashion is probably a lot more fluid, and it's a lot more individual and
Mm.
just out there, to the point of like, this is me. I don't care. This is like whatever I'm going to wear. I'm going to
Mm.
wear it. It's a lot more individual, I
Mm.
think.
If you had a message or something to say to the
Mm.
fashion industry, however broadly you perceive that, what would it be? What do you want them to be hearing?
Yeah. I still think the fashion industry needs a lot more diversity. I think like kind of we've made progress has been made in
Mm,
terms of diverse models, but I think there's still kind of a way to go. I think clothing brands need to really change their sizing a
mm,
lot. I think, every single body in the whole world is diverse. And I don't think there's enough fashion brands that kind of reflect that with
mm,
their sizing. I think that clothes should be made to fit you, not you made to fit clothes. And I think that that's something that really needs to change within the fashion industry. Is there's just not enough like kind of like someone that's in like a larger body or someone that's in like a smaller body. There's not that kind of diversity that you see when it comes to modeling,
mm,
and there's not that diversity often you see when it comes to sizing of
mm,
clothes.
absolutely.
Um, I think I mentioned earlier that trousers are particularly difficult for me. Like pretty much every single pair of trousers that I buy, I have to turn up because generally speaking, men's leg sizes start at like a 30-inch inside leg. And my inside leg is 27 inches. So they fit around my waist, but they don't fit around my legs. And if I want to buy like suit trousers that aren't gonna, you know, go halfway down my feet because you can't really roll a suit trouser up. I need to like buy a cropped one and
Mm,
then have as just like a normal fit for
mm,
me, basically. So definitely, yeah, more diversity of sizing because not everybody fits one particular thing. I feel like in like kind of the 2000s and stuff like that, there was a lot of pressure on being thin and that equating to desirable within the modeling world, and that's just not the reality for everyone. So yeah, I think way more diversity. We've seen a lot of diversity recently, I think, in the fashion industry, but we need to go further, basically. Halfway there, we just need to get further.
I completely agree with you there. So good that you've made those points. Is there anything else that you would say to anybody else out there in the queer community more generally?
I think if I were to give fashion specific advice, I don't know that I'm necessarily like a fashion guru who can tell everyone what to do, but wear what makes you feel comfortable and what makes you look hot. That's that. If you look at it, if you put it on and you look in the mirror and you think I look hot, then I think you should wear it. More kind of like general advice is surround yourself with people like you. I think there's such an importance of community, particularly with the queer community. I think it's really important to build that community around yourself so that you have a support network in place. Because if you're coming out, that's never going to be easy. Even if you have, a supportive network, it's still hard to come out. But I think surround yourself with people that are like you, and you're going to feel a hell of a lot better about yourself, and you're going to come into your own so much more.